So fire element people are naturally happy, bubbly, pleasant people to be around, and they tend to have really good connections with people. And one of their strengths is the connection, or helping people see a connection between the earth and the human realm and the spiritual realm. Now, this can take many forms. So you see this with people that become gurus, that become coaches, that become people that kind of transcend, let's say. Now, it doesn't have to be a religious form of connection. It can be a spiritual, emotional almost connection with the earth and the environment that's sort of transcending just what's going on day to day, human-like, what's going on in our heads, sort of almost connecting what's going on with your head, with your heart. And particularly that spiritual aspect. So if that's you and you're a fire element person, you think, yeah, I've always had this affinity for like the world beyond. What's beyond what happens when we die? Like, you know, what is that? What is that? Well, that's something that you should explore as a fire element person. That'll probably benefit you, and you'll probably feel a greater sense of purpose in your life if you do explore that. And so I would say maybe in 2021, is there a place for you to explore that? Is there a, you know, do you need someone to give you permission? Well, here I am giving you permission to explore that area. If that's you and you think, yeah, I'd like to explore that a bit more and see what's out there. You know, what kind of other spiritual connections can I make? Like what kind of, you know, maybe you're a person that watches a lot of podcasts and listens to a lot of different ideas about those things, and you're very curious about that stuff. Well, or you might be someone who makes podcasts about those things. Well, maybe that's time for you to make a podcast about those things, or I don't know, something like that. Fire element people tend to be very passionate and enthusiastic people. And so in the world, you can use that fire, that passion and that enthusiasm. It not only fuels you and makes you feel good, but it fuels people around you. And so that would be my advice to you if you're a fire person and you think, well, what am I supposed to be doing in 2021? How could you best use your passion and your enthusiasm for whatever it is that you're passionate and enthusiastic about to help others get out of, like, you can help lift, you can be a great igniter of passion in others. You know, you can help lift people out of depression, help lift people out of a state of mundane and let them, you know, experience something like that. And this leads me to my next point. Fire element people tend to be very persuasive people, right? Now, this can have really negative connotations. So when you say persuasive, or when you say selling something, let's say, a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to be a pushy old salesperson. That's horrible. In a sales job, persuasion can be really beneficial, right? So I'll tell you how it's beneficial how it's a lost kind of art, I think, is you used to be able to go into a store and you would see someone who's an expert on something and they would kind of tell you the pros and cons of those different types of the thing you're looking at, and you'd be able to make a decision and you'd go away with the purchase, right? Well, now most people do their research online, they kind of come in, they know what they want, and so less and less people in stores are kind of trained to even know diddly squat about the products, right? I've gone into some stores and I demand people to know what they're selling. Because if that's your store, like I used to own a store, I used to run a retail store, and so it was my job. If I put a product in my shop, I have to know what that does and how that best can help somebody and what it can do and what it's for, right? That's your job. Sorry, but that is. And so it's a little bit of a pet hate of mine that you go into stores and they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know it. Well, they won't talk to you. Sometimes you can't even find a person. So sometimes you go into a store and you leave disappointed as a consumer. And so that art of having someone there to persuade you, not in a bad way at all. It can be a very positive experience. So that person, like, no value can be received until you've made a purchase. Like, I can think about light globes all I want, but unless I bloody go and buy one, I'm not getting the light turns on in my house, right? Like, if my globe is blowing, and this has happened to me before, where I've got this specific kind of globe, you know, you go to a store and you're like, I need one that's dimmable and it's, you know, the right fitting and everything. You buy one, you come home, it's smashes straight away because it's not the right one. So you go back to the store, you can't find the person that's going to explain to you, you just want to get this product, and there's like maybe 50 different kinds of light globes there and you still can't find the one that you want. How frustrating and how disappointing. how great would it be if there was someone there to persuade you and use that art of persuasion in a positive way, in a way that brings value to you, and to say this is the right one for you, and they sell you the product that you want. Well, that's a positive selling experience, right? So fire people often find themselves in sales roles, but not always, right? But persuasion also doesn't have to be negative. So the point I mentioned before this was that fire people can help, like, lift people out of a depression, help them experience that passion and that joy that they easily experience. And part of that can be persuasion. So you might be in a group of people, let's say, and you've got a couple of people like, oh, we don't really want to do it. But if there's some fire people there and they really want to do it, they're going to say, hey guys, you're going to, let's come along. And so these other people end up having a good time. They might not even say that they had a good time, but only because that fire person was there, sort of saying, hey, come on, you don't be by yourself, don't be alone, or whatever. And so that could be very, very positive. So fire people are very magnetic and charismatic. So my advice to you as a fire person would be to say, hey, what things in 2021 do you need to be more passionate about, be more charismatic about, be more engaged with? Like, what things bring you joy that you love doing? Maybe there's a little project you want to do. You want to write a book, you want to start a blog, you want to start a YouTube channel, whatever, like this kind of stuff, or connect with people in a certain way. You might want to start a group, a support group for some kind of health problem, or just some kind of experience people have had. Those things can be very positive and very beneficial, not just to you, but to the other people in there. Right, the weaknesses of the fire type. One of the things that the fire type do very well is seeking pleasure and intimacy. And what can happen as a weakness of this is that the fire type actually need pleasure and need intimacy, particularly the intimacy. So they're not the types of people that would be alone, or certainly wouldn't like being alone, and they wouldn't seek out to be alone. But if you found yourself being alone and you're a fire type, a weakness of that situation can be one, that you might seek pleasure in the wrong places, let's say, or very quickly, or form maybe be sucked into different kind of relationships that are not beneficial to you just because you don't want to be alone. And also, if you're a fire type and you're in a relationship, but for some reason you are not getting the intimacy and the pleasure that you need in that relationship, then it can be very tempting for fire type of people to look for it elsewhere. And so that can lead to your existing relationship breaking down, and maybe people cheating on their partner or things like that very easily. I'm not saying that it's okay because you're a fire type, it's okay to do that, but there are some types can get away in life without too much pleasure and intimacy. But fire types of people kind of need it. They thrive on it, but they also need it. So I would suggest that you communicate your needs to your partner as early on in the relationship as you can, if you know you're this type of person, particularly if they're not that type of person. So if you've got two fire types together, well, they both need intimacy and they're going to be looking for it all the time. Because if you're a fire type and your partner's not looking for intimacy, like pleasure and intimacy as much as you are, they might be fueled by other things, right? They just get sucked into their work and they're just busy all the time in that. And that's making them thrive in a way, or fueling them. Whereas you're, away from that situation, you're like, well, what about me? I need time with you. I need pleasure. I need intimacy. So it can be really hard. So I guess my advice would be to, communicate as quickly as you can with your partner about that need, if you haven't already. And to also just recognise that if you are alone for a period of time, that it's hard, and you probably need to seek out relationships with people, not necessarily, sexual relationships, but there is that need, and you don't want to be in that void for too long, having, so if you move countries and you're used to having physical contact and seeing friends and family all the time, and then suddenly you don't have that, as a fire type, that can be really, really disheartening to you. Like, it can be quite detrimental. The other weakness of fire that can happen is very easily a fire person can get reality distorted in their world. So they can get to a point where this can be sometimes mental illness, and it can just sometimes be
Don't you know I'm loco?
a period of time that they go through where they're just easily, it's just like reality is distorted. That's probably the best, I don't know how else to say that. So if you need help, you need to seek out help, right? Professional help. You need someone that you can talk to, whether it's a partner, whether it's a good friend, whether it's a therapist, something like that. So if you feel like your reality isn't, you feel like your reality may be distorted, then that's when you can seek help. But sometimes you don't know until it's too late, until something detrimental has happened. So what's good for fire type of people, if you know you're a fire type, is to just have other friends around you that can keep you in check, that are not fire type of people. Especially like, let's say, wood or water or metal types that are a bit more grounded and a bit more able to say, hey, that's a bit crazy. And that's a bit that's a bit of a distorted perception that you've got of the world. That person probably doesn't really think like that. So let's say, you've got a distorted perception of like, oh, that person really hates me and they just out to get me. And another person might say, hey, that's not what that behavior doesn't say that to me at all. That behavior just says that person's going through a hard time. They don't necessarily hate you or are out to get you. So look, I hope this series has been useful and helpful to you. And if it has, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like. Let me know in the comments if this has helped you, how you're feeling about this series. I just want to make a little video before New Year to kind of help you with your planning and with your ideas for New Year. I hope you're doing well, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video soon.